Welcome and thank you so much for joining me this beautiful morning with this breathtaking view in front of me. I am your host, Caryn Lutz, CEO, founder, spiritual and transformational mindset life coach at On The Go Talent. You could reach me at CarynLutz.com, CarynLutz, or onthegotalent.com. I am so excited for this episode this morning, and it's going to be a funny one. Today, I have the pleasure of sharing part of my life story and journey with you when I was an Apple buddy and when I worked at Applebees. So welcome and thank you anyone for tuning in and joining me today on this fun episode. So Applebees, yes. Okay, so how did I start there? When did I work there? What happened? Well, all of the above happened starting in 2003. So as I had mentioned before in another episode, I had graduated college. I had 2 bachelor's degrees, thinking, wasn't that enough? I wasn't ready to move to New York City just yet. I was just trying to find what I really wanted to do, even though I know what I wanted to do. So one of my best friends said, hey, you know what? Applebee's is hiring. She was working there at the time, and she worked there for several years as well. And she said, hey, why don't you apply? It'll be good money. You'll have fun. And I'm so grateful to her for giving me that opportunity. So I remember I got hired September 1st, 2003. Me and my dates, right? And gosh, anybody else who's watching, and I can't wait to tag all of my Apple buddies. There's so many of us, and this is just one of my favorite topics to talk about. So I started in September. I was a server, and I learned so much. So if anybody's watching, I could give you some background information. And those little containers that you get your sauces in, they're called ramekins. So my husband Joe laughs at me because I'm like, when we're out to eat, I know the server lingo, and I say to the servers, I'm like, oh, could I have some, more oil and vinegar in a ramekin? And even the servers will be like, yep. I'm like, listen, I've been there. I understand. So that's one of the things that I've learned and the lessons I've learned. And one of the tips I'm going to say today to you, if you are out and you are eating at a restaurant, please keep in mind and tip your server well. They don't make much. Okay. So that's one of the things. Tip your server well. And even if they're having a bad day, you don't know why they're having a bad day. Just keep that in mind. That's huge to me. And that's one of the lessons that my parents even said. My mom will say, hey, you know what? Even when we go out to eat now, you taught us that. And it's just the right thing to do. So anyway, so I'll talk about some of my favorite foods, and I feel like an advertisement for them, but eating good, feeling good in the neighborhood, right? Isn't that the lingo? And the motto, so Bourbon Street steak, spinach and artichoke dip, and gosh, some of my favorites. And they had the chicken and steak fajitas, so many things. So yeah, and that was one of the places that my grandfather loved. I think he liked me working there because, I was able to, I believe we got discounted food, to take some stuff home when I was working there. So I have so many favorite stories. I just remember, Friday and Saturday nights, and sometimes I would be a closer in the closing section, and it would be really long nights. And that's one of the things, I had many different jobs, part-time jobs back then. Like I said, so this was from 2003 to 2007. I left that December. I felt like I needed to leave, even though I really didn't want to. So 2003 to 2007. And this was even during the time where I lived, in Hoboken when I did move there. And I'd even come home on the weekends just to work at Applebees. I had the opportunity to get hired at the Applebees in Times Square in New York City, and I turned it down because I had so much fun at the West Hazleton, Pennsylvania location. And if you're just joining me, thanks so much for watching. I hope I bring some love and light and energetic emotion and energy back to you today. So 2007, yes, I decided to end and then, you know, just spend my time mostly substitute teaching. But I was substitute teaching back then, and gosh, I remember like on a Tuesday night, I believe it was like kids night, and I would just close with, you know, one of my best friends that I mentioned earlier. And it was tough because I was substitute teaching then. So, you know, go home and then get back up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and see like what the day had, you know, in store for me. So I think back then I just knew that, hey, you know what, like one day I really just want to be my own boss and not have to answer. But I'm so grateful for these experiences. So one of the most favorite times was like on a Friday, Saturday night. It was jam-packed, and we would just dance around. I swear I was like the paid entertainment for that place, because I would just sing along to the songs, you know, and have a good time and dance in the kitchen, you know, almost slip and fall on in the kitchen back there, but it was a lot of fun. Another favorite experience is when they would have this thing called Bar Olympics, and I believe they have like the regional or the districts of the Rose group, if I remember correctly, and our district manager Sharon was awesome. She was nice. So they would have the Bar Olympics, so like to raise money for some charity back then. I believe it was around Halloween. So I was in charge of choreographing one of the routines that they won. So proud of that. So if you are tuning in later and watching the replay, I'll probably tag those who won that contest back then with the bartenders. They performed Thriller, but like all of us danced. You know, it was just one of those things that I got everybody together because that's what it was about. You know, they said eating good in the neighborhood. I grew up in that town, you know, West Hazleton, and I look forward to the regulars. You know, there was this older couple who lived nearby, and they would have that corner table like every weekend, and we knew what they'd have. And it's just moments like that that really just touch your soul when you're able to connect with people on a different level. It wasn't even about the food, you know. And my friend who ran karaoke there too, that was a good time. So I'd be serving and then come over and sing a song. We just really had a lot of fun. And, you know, yeah, it was interesting, and it was, you know, actually full-time for me when I first started. And then it just, you know, ended up being part-time. But so many people through that journey I've become lifelong friends with. Some were at the wedding. I was at their weddings. I sang for their weddings. So you just connect with the community. And I'm just so grateful for that experience, because later on when I did live in Hoboken, I had that experience. You know, their training there was phenomenal. And I worked at a high, you know, fancy restaurant, if you may, two of them when I lived in Hoboken. But I'm so grateful for the experience that I had, because I didn't like it, to be quite honest. It was too much pressure, you know, and it was like well-to-do, and I'm like, my personality was just, you know. But I might add that one of those restaurants that I did start out, and I will give a shout out, there's a place called the Madison in New Jersey, in Hoboken. And I hope they're still around, because that was a good time. They had like the fine dining in one part, and then like the bar would open up and the dancing on the other side. So yeah, and I'll have to take my friend who was the bartender there, still friends with her. Gosh, this is so long ago, but like so precious. You know, you never know where life is going to take you. So thank you so much for tuning in. You know, some of my friends who became trainers, then they became hourly, I want to say, and then they became, you know, managers and moved right on up. So it's really cool to see where people end up on their journey or where they are now and help them on their journey. So thank you so much for watching. Dear God, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share one of my most favorite moments, one of my most favorite jobs in this life with others. Today I ask you to remove any heartache, any sorrow, any depression, any anxiety that anyone is feeling. If you are struggling and you need motivation, God is always around. God is always there. And I encourage you to ask for help. Set your intention for the day. Set your intention and it will happen. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. God bless.